This is Michael Tucker, and you're watching the new Legends on Deck podcast with host Brian Koss and David Conde.
Hello and welcome to episode 20 of the Legends on Deck podcast. I am Brian Koss along with co-founder David Conde, and our special guest today is Greg Sullivan. He is the president and co-owner of the Carolina Disco Turkeys, who are a summer collegiate league team located in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. The Disco Turkeys are members of the All-American Baseball Association. And Greg, welcome to the show this morning.
Hey, good morning, Brian and David. How's it going, guys?
Man, welcome, man. That's an interesting name. Disco Turkeys.
We're here on the last week of the year, so Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, everybody.
Yeah, same to you guys.
So we have a lot of fun on this site. We've been covering Summer Collegiate League over the summer, which has been great. A lot of our stuff we cover actually has to do with the Savannah Bananas, which I think they're now going independent, which is going to be a whole different show over there. But if you can give us a little history of how the Disco Turkeys came to be, and what's your background in baseball, and how did you end up, leading this franchise?
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely an exciting time to be in the summer collegiate ranks. And I think just minor league baseball in general, summer collegiate baseball, coming out of COVID, I think things are kind of getting back to normal where, this past year, most places didn't have any restrictions or nothing too significant. And the Savannah Bananas are doing some cool stuff, like you mentioned. I think for us, we were planning the team a little bit before COVID happened. And then, while teams were kind of taking that year to, some of them didn't play, some did with limited capacity, we were really gearing up for the next season. So, a little over a year of preparing, just building everything up. And yeah, I think, that first year, it was a little bit of a challenge, just knowing if you'd be able to play, because it ended up being a situation where we didn't have capacity issues going into 2021. But that off season, while we were getting prepared to launch our team, there were really questions on, what the state rules and stuff like that would be almost all the way up until we launched the team. So it ended up not affecting us too much, but was somewhat stressful, we kind of thought we'd have a 250 person limit or something like that, but it ended up right before the season started, that went away. And kind of along those lines, we ended up being able to set up working with Winston-Salem Dash, where we would, be using the same facility going into the 2021 season. We felt good about that because we knew they'd be trying to play baseball because they have their obligation with Major League Baseball as an affiliated team. They had a name, with Winston-Salem, so we felt free to experiment a little bit, called it something different, Carolina. And I'd had the name Disco Turkeys in my head for a long time, actually. And, I think we wanted to kind of feel it out and see if it would work. And then just once we got the facilities set, kind of knew, we all lived in Winston-Salem, but once we knew for sure we'd be able to play in Winston-Salem in 2021, that's when we were like, okay, well, there's already a team here that has a name. So why not Disco Turkeys? Why not something outside of the box? Because, the city's already kind of broadly represented anyway with a team that they've had for several years. We felt like the culture of the town would be supportive of an outside the box name. There's a lot of colleges here with Wake Forest, Salem College, Winston-Salem State, UNC School of the Arts. There's an arts scene. It felt, as well as Disco Turkeys is going to fit a city, I feel like it fits ours really well. And then, just seeing where we could push it, and it worked, and it was a magical time kind of preparing and launching the team. But it's been a lot of fun doing that, and ever since.
Did you have a background in baseball prior to launching this franchise?
Yeah, definitely. Just growing up in North Georgia, it was this, at least where I'm from, I think as far as people watching on TV, it's probably baseball and football, but like as far as what people play growing up where I'm from, it probably was baseball. I was just kind of an average player growing up. I didn't play in high school or college or anything. But, I always was around the game, growing up, I'd actually go down to where you guys are. My grandfather would he had a grocery store kind of thing, and he would shut down for a week in March, and we'd go to spring training in West Palm Beach to watch the Braves for a week. So that kind of interest in baseball from a young age. And then, I was a sports writer for several years. So out of college, I worked at a small newspaper and was a sports editor. And then I ended up in Nashville, the Tennessean, the daily newspaper there. And I was the baseball beat writer there for a while. So I covered, I like to say, it's probably kind of ended up being the best possible training because, you're talking about the top minor league team in existence, the Nashville Sounds, really well-run organization. I think they led all minor league baseball in attendance this past year, or they're always one of the top two or three.
Yeah, because they're always you always get in Nashville on the conversation of, are they the next in line to get a Major League Baseball franchise? And a lot of that's based off of the attendance that the Sound do.
Mm-hmm. The Sound,
and the growing population too. But but they do well, I guess.
Yeah, when I was there, I think they felt like just this. I'm talking about just people around the city that are kind of in the know. The common knowledge was they might be a long way from getting an MLB team because there was already an NFL team in town and an NHL team in town at the time. And it wasn't so much about attendance. I think everyone's always thought the attendance would be great. Yeah. I think at the time they were worried about whether there was enough major sponsor dollars for suite sales and stuff to support 3 or 4 or 5 major pro sports teams,
Sure.
And since then, they've added MLS, they've added NASCAR.
Right.
So it's, I don't think you can count them out. But as far as baseball interest, I would say where I grew up was probably better play, just there's more athletes in Georgia, I think, than Tennessee. But as far as just fan interest, Nashville's always been good. So I covered the Sounds, got to meet a lot of guys who ended up on the Brewers for multiple years, and kind of get their side of things. But I also, you're talking about 2 or 3 years of like going to every single home game basically.
Yeah.
So it's like a lot of like just being able to kind of watch how they run their team, kind of learn from the best. And while I was there, I also covered Vanderbilt University, and it was during their really when Tim Corbin got that program to where they were competing. They were kind of trying to get over the hump at the time, but they ended up going to the College World Series while I was in town covering them some, and eventually became a national championship program.
Yeah.
So I got to see the best of college baseball, and it's also like, because you go to some really good college baseball programs, but the games aren't very well attended just because of the time of year and
Sure. Yeah, the
just
cold weather.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors, but I feel like they were one of the ones that it's almost like going to a minor league game in the sense that there's, even on just a random March night or whatever, you might have 2,000 or 3,000 people at a game.
Well, you look at it now. I mean, look at like Vanderbilt is like a premium baseball school. I mean, we're talking there. Yeah, I mean, if you're talking, they're Vanderbilt kind of gets left behind in the college football scene. In the SEC, they're kind of the bottom ranks, but on the baseball scene, they're at the top. They're in the top, the elite group.
They are, and they pull players from all over the country really well in the Northeast for whatever reason, and they've been good for a long time. But yeah, they've got a great coach. The school supports them really well. Great facilities. So yeah, I think I was fortunate to be able to be around some really high level sports programs and get to know the people that run the teams, and then just get to watch firsthand how they operate. And then after that, I've done some marketing work and a lot of different types of writing work that, where I think it's just developing skills. I think, for me, all that stuff's very important for making the brand and the team a success. I would just also say, at the independent baseball and summer collegiate level, not being affiliated with MLB, we do so much like personnel type work, player experience type work. It's not something that someone could just come off the street and run a team if they're pretty smart and kind of know what they're doing a little bit, but that would be very bad for baseball. And I like to say that because, we see what we're doing with the team as being a part of the ecosystem, and of baseball. And, I've seen some summer collegiate teams just around the country, that are really, really well run. And then some that are pretty well run. But if someone, is trying it out or something, it could be very bad because the players, it's their summer to develop, and you want them to feel like they've been able to prepare for their school, that they're healthy, that just things like roster depth, kind of managing the pitching, just whatever kind of player experience stuff they need. And I think, for summer collegiate baseball, that's all really important stuff. But it's also like for indie ball teams are dealing with some of the same stuff where just the range of things, it doesn't have to be one person that knows how to do it all, but you've got to have a team in place where, you're just handling a wide range of things that come up beyond just fan experience, which, some teams, what they're really worried about is, getting fans into the ballpark and, just getting everything smooth and marketing and stuff, which is all really important. But for all these indie ball teams and summer collegiate teams, it's just a whole extra layer of work. Making sure the team and the coaches have what they need to be successful, or like, just stuff like you take for granted, like ordering uniforms, which, like, I don't know, kind of different levels, if that's the responsibility of the affiliate or of the team or the major league team. But for us, it's just like, man, there are just so many things, but that's why we're doing it now, try to get some of that stuff done in December and January.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's so you do have quite an in-depth baseball background, especially from kind of Dave and my familiarity with, the writing side and all that, which is cool.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I think some of it is just too, like, I've been around, I would say, long enough to know what I don't know.
Sure.
And kind of who to ask,
Right. Yep. So we got to ask the obvious question that David and I are both trying to figure out. So what exactly is a disco turkey?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. I think if it were easy to answer, I feel like we'd lose a lot of the success that we've had,
Okay, fair.
But no, I'm not trying to dodge the question. It is a peacock.
Okay.
But I think it's also, I like to say it's a conversation starter.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of fun in it taking people a minute to go, oh, okay, I get it now. I think when people get to kind of joke around about stuff like that, it kind of is part of the experience,
Very cool. Very cool.
Well, there's some interesting things about the roster that I'm looking at right now. So when you put the roster together, how do you put it together? I mean, how do you get the word out? So let's talk about the roster first. So how do you get the word out? Because I see Queens, I'm a New York guy. So I'm thinking that's Queens, New York, I'm assuming. Hofstra University. So I see, around the North Carolina area. But what do you do to get the word out? Like, how do you get these guys to come to where you're at? And, I mean, is it tryouts and everything?
No, I mean, I guess you could do tryouts, but like for us, like, because indie ball teams are always doing tryouts. For us, the players are often, still at college, while a tryout probably would make sense to do.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know that you can't, but like we just kind of scouted on our own. And often it's relationships with the college coaches and kind of, they'll send somebody to us. That player will come back and say, yeah, these guys were awesome. And then they'll send us 2 people the next year. They'll come back and say we're awesome. And they'll send us 4 people, So that's kind of ideally how it goes. And then, sometimes players just from different places see the name and just reach out, and we kind of, it's not just about signing people up. It's just kind of seeing if it's a fit. We're kind of like any other team. And maybe a little more so because part of our focus is developing them for their next season, for their college team. If we have 6 outfielders, we're probably not going to add a couple more that reach out, If we have 3 catchers, we're probably not going to be aggressively looking for a 4th catcher. So, we're like kind of considering, what we can bring in, kind of how these people will help us, but also how we can help them. We don't want, a bunch of people sitting on the bench all summer, because that's kind of defeats the purpose of the team, is where they're getting some reps, they're getting enough at bats where they're going to take a step, and hopefully that's helping us where they go back to their schools and like, okay, this player's gotten better after spending the summer with those guys. But yeah, Queens is actually in Charlotte.
Okay.
I think there are some Queens, some colleges with Queens in the name in Queens borough in New York, but they have Charlotte is the Queen city. It's a little fact for the day for you.
Right.
So we get a few guys from the Charlotte area, a few guys from the Raleigh-Durham, Chapel Hill Triangle area, and then we get a lot of guys local, and and then sometimes like we have a player that sometime between high school and college, his parents moved from another state to Winston-Salem, but he plays in Maine, but he comes home in the summer and he plays for us. So we do get a little bit of diversity as far as, kind of where they're from and stuff, because of just their parents might live here and things like that. We've got a player who we've had before, and he played at a different place last summer. And then the new friend he made on the other team in a different part of the country wants to come out and play for us with him this year. So it's sometimes there'll be if it's a fit, it'll be like a guy that had a good time will bring his buddy with him the next year. And then a lot of times, I think, and as we grow, it becomes more and more of this. It's the coaches sending the players.
So is the gentleman from Hofstra, is that Hofstra University of New York or Hofstra
It
locally?
is.
Okay.
It is, and he's from the North Carolina.
Okay.
He might, I don't know, like his family might have some ties to New York, but he played high school baseball here, and I guess his parents live in this area. So he's gone up there, he's going to play, and he's coming back here. But yeah, I think that's kind of a cool thing about our area, and probably for you guys in Florida. We're kind of the talent source for the rest of the country too. Just because, these southern states, kids play year round. Odds are they're probably a little bit better prepared than kids from different states where they play less baseball. And, we'll get a lot of kids from North Carolina, going off to the Northeast or the Midwest and, come back here and play with us.
So I'm gonna assume that none of the ball players that come in have to be able to dance or throw a ball between their legs.
We haven't acquired anything like that yet. I think it's a plus,
Yeah.
We haven't, I would say, we definitely don't shy away from stuff like that, but we don't push it too hard. We're kind of somewhere in the middle, I would say. I wouldn't call us buttoned down by any means.
Yeah.
We live up to the name, I'd say, but like, we're not quite Savannah Bananas, we're not leaning into it that hard. We kind of see it, I think for us long term, we're a little bit more, we do want to take the baseball development side of things very seriously. And especially as a new team, make sure people know that we're doing that.
Yeah.
And so the Savannah Bananas, even before they went, pro like they have, they'd been around for 2 or 3 more years than us. So like, it's maybe they had at a certain point they had to prove that less,
Yeah.
But I think we're still kind of growing in the sense of like just people being aware that we've got a good program here and we're trying to have fun. I think we have a reputation for being a place where good players can come, have a good time, goof around a little bit. There'll be some fans in the crowd watching. It's not. There are some teams around where it's just like your girlfriend and your mom and dad will be watching, but we're one where the city comes out and buys tickets and watches the games. So players like that, and then if you want to dance a little bit, we have a home run jacket, stuff like that. We have a good time, but the players are also like, pretty, they can be a little serious sometimes. And, I would say also like we've had a lot of players who start the summer really kind of, they're like dancing around without anybody prompting them to, they kind of loosen up.
One question I think on the roster.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
I just have one question on the roster, if you don't mind. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The coaching staff. How do you get the manager, the coaching staff? Like, who are there to kind of help these players develop?
Yeah. So our first year we had a coach from one of the local colleges. It's kind of like a job interview. Reached out to some different people, interviewed them, found someone we liked. Our current coach is someone we promoted from within. So he was the hitting coach our first year, and the players really like him. We were getting good results. So we promoted him to head coach, and, he played college baseball at Oklahoma State. So he was from a good program. just really wants to be involved with something in locally, and help some guys out. And so here we are. But he last season, we kind of, as the year was starting, we had a coaching change because our coach got a new, just like the players, the idea is you want them to do so well and then sign a pro contract or something, and everybody wins. Our coach from our first year got his first full-time head coaching job at a college, so he left us to do that. And so we promoted from within, and the coach made it through the grind of the season and had a good time, and he's coming back. So but yeah, I think a lot of times teams around the country, they'll have some of the guys will be have ties to the community where you're playing. But anytime you have people with some college or pretty good winning experience, that's a plus. Because the players are used to having good coaches, at least in our experience. So like we feel the need to make sure they're feeling the same when they get here.
Absolutely. The other question I was going to add to that, staff wise, do you guys operate with some full-time staff or some part-time staff, or is it a lot of interns involved? Because I know a lot of summer collegiate leagues are the ground game kind of is mostly intern based.
Yeah, it's a mix. I would say. I mean, I'm doing this year round. I mean, full time, and like in the season, like way more than full time, as you guess probably. But we do have a lot of interns. It definitely helps. Just some of them are really skilled, and then some we just kind of work with and make it work. And but you need the kind of hands and feet, you know what I mean? People on the ground for the game. We make it good experience for them. For us, the thing with interns for us is like the interns, we make sure they're always doing things that are like geared towards their development, so, especially with the facility, like we have a concessionaire that the Dash work with, that we also work with.
Oh, nice.
So they're like hourly employees selling hot dogs and stuff. Yeah. So like our interns are not really selling hot dogs. They're more like doing marketing or doing some things like that. So there are like kind of those kind of nuts and bolts game day staff members, some interns, me. We've got a few. I've really tried to like have a few like veteran employees, just so it's I like having some 20-year-olds around, but like I like don't mind having a few older people around to kind of just be able to help, because it can be a lot, like things come up during the game, and like it's different personality types are better equipped to handle different situations. And our PA person, he was a GM of a team back in the 70s. He's retired basically. And he's, and it's kind of like having a extra GM, sometimes in the press box. And helpful. Yeah. So, you do things like that. You find people that, have some experience that can add to the team. And then, there's definitely a lot of good interns out there. And, I think we're trying to make sure like some of them are older interns, like grad students and stuff, just to, it's depending on the role, it can make a difference on, there's certain things like going out and selling sponsorships that you don't want a 19-year-old doing by themselves necessarily,
Sure.
So it's a mix.
I'm sure your PA guy is enjoying it, coming back, retiring and just coming to a baseball field and just having fun. I mean, I'm sure that probably would like to be my when I retire at the end, just hang out at a baseball field all the time.
Yeah, he does love it. We have a good time, and he's definitely been around, and he was actually a commissioner of a summer league back in the day too. So I think he likes the summer collegiate level. And some of the teams we play against, he'll see people he used to know back in the day. So um, I think he likes it. I don't know that he would like to do it every day of the week, as far as like deal with some of the headaches of things that people deal with. But we definitely have a lot of people on the team that like being around the ballpark, in the summer, and that makes it fun. And we've got some volunteers too that are kind of like that. Like there's a lady that helps us out a lot, and her son played high school baseball, and I think for her it's like just kind of, you know, makes her feel connected to the game again, and she's having fun. But there's definitely that whole like community effort aspect of things, which is fun.
So that kind of brings it into my next question. You mentioned the sort of the shared ballpark.
Yeah.
That's kind of unique, I think, in terms of summer leagues, but also it probably is an enhancement for you guys because you're using a minor league ballpark as your home field. So you got maybe nicer facilities than a lot of places are used to.
Definitely.
Can you tell us a little bit about how that relationship works?
Sure. Yeah, I think it is a little bit unique. It kind of, one thing that worked out well about that is like launching it, the whole program kind of coming out of COVID. I've heard a lot of stories about a lot of facilities that run by like local municipalities or high schools or colleges that were a little bit, and groups were rightfully cautious, and everyone was cautious, including everyone we work with. They're making sure they're doing everything the right way and that kind of thing. But it worked out nicely to be working with a group that we're kind of in the same boat where they have a need to use the facility. They're going to make sure they're doing it safely and that they're doing everything they're supposed to do. But like like a lot of small governments and stuff would just not have baseball that summer, but we knew that if it was going to be safe to do baseball, an affiliated team would be doing it, within whatever rules they've got. So it all kind of worked out where the rules, the state regulations changed right before the season started, and like I mentioned, so that all worked out. We were all able to play, and going into it, we were all hopeful that the community would stay, numbers would be good and that everything would be fine. And it was a successful summer. The rules didn't change because things went fairly well, I think, just around the country. So that all was good. And then, I think, just the big stuff is just, they've got about 70 home dates they have to play. So I think for us, we just work around the dates they have because their schedule comes out usually in the fall of the year before the season. So we start working with them on kind of seeing what dates make sense for us and them, and kind of go from there. I mean, there's some rules with MLB and stuff like that we've got to work with just as far as field use, but that's all been good. I think, I think you're right as far as it is an asset to just be playing in a nice facility. It helps with player recruitment. I think that's a big thing. I think it helps for fan experience. So lots of good stuff there. And I think we've tried to make it feel like a Disco Turkeys game when people are there, because that's definitely one thing. Is like you've got the other team's branding everywhere and that kind of stuff. Right. So we do and a lot of our fans are fans of them as well, and kind of vice versa. So it's all good.
You got a lot of baseball in the summer there in Winston-Salem.
We do have a lot of baseball, and I think I think we want people to kind of remember our name and remember kind of what we're doing, and we do a lot of stuff to make that happen. But if people go, I'm sure like both teams are seeing positive effects of the other. Like, you're energizing people around baseball. So they'll come to our game, maybe have an awesome time, and then they might go to one of their games the next week when we're playing a road game, and vice versa, So all that, I think is a plus. I think it's good for the city. But really, like, and that's the other side of this is like, it's about the players as well. Our city historically hasn't had very much summer collegiate baseball. Often, like, people look at the sport from a business standpoint, and it's like these like large markets get MLB, medium markets get MILB, and then kind of these somewhat medium, small-ish cities get summer collegiate. But the problem with thinking about it that way is like you've got a lot of players who live in the cities. You have a lot of players who live in these medium-sized cities. They don't all want to move to some small town like 2 or 3 states away in the summer. Some of them might have to have jobs, just for personal financial reasons or something, or maybe can't afford the hundreds of dollars to drive out to another state, or don't for whatever reason. So we're filling in player development niche there, and I think you see a lot of towns where that's kind of working, and it's from a business standpoint, it makes a lot of sense to have a market all to yourself. But like from what is your niche in baseball, there's a lot to be said for being able to be there for the players who want to stay in town. And so it's really encouraging to see like teams like the Portland Pickles, some of the teams out west, who are in these larger markets, and sometimes they have somewhat of a monopoly, sometimes they don't, but like they are able to make our game elevated, where for the fan it's really cool. It's similar to minor league baseball, but also they're in a bigger city for the players that just want to be in a bigger city, or don't want to, maybe they're from that city and don't want to leave. So I think it's pretty cool what we're doing. Just there's a lot of thoughts behind kind of what approach you can take with the team, but I think it's the big winner are the players' families of our players. And I think our relationship with the local minor league team, it helps that, I think they're getting a nice facility, but also like just the benefit of being able to sleep in their own beds if they want to.
Yeah.
So some of the other teams that you play,
Mm-hmm.
are they playing in minor league stadium as well, or when you go on the road, what do their stadiums look like? Are they high school fields? What do they use?
Yeah, it's a mix. I mean, we try to play road games in I don't think it's necessarily bad for teams to be in smaller facilities, and some of those can have really nice playing surfaces. My thought on it is like I really like it when the other teams are trying to build an experience. It could be a small community, smaller facility. But if they're like, selling concessions and beer and like marketing the teams, the games, even a small place is going to have some energy to it. I can't completely avoid it just because travel, like you start to weigh things out. Like, do I drive 4 hours and get slightly better competition this date, or do I drive 1 hour and get okay competition, but my guys aren't tired because they drove 4 hours the day before or something like that? So you're like kind of building a schedule and weighing these things out. But yeah, I don't like to be in facilities just as a fan and a business person, and I think it's bad for our brand, and the players really don't like it. being in a ballpark that has no energy in it, which, sometimes on a Monday or Tuesday, it's the nature of the beast. But there definitely are programs out there where it's more of it's essentially more like playing a travel ball team where it's like, just there'll be some parents coming in and some girlfriends and buddies coming in, but not like the community's not coming out to support the team.
Sure.
It's almost like watching a practice if you go to some of these games. So we try to do as few of those as possible. We try to play really good teams too. I mean, when I talk to players, they care a lot about not facing a bunch of like guys throwing 70, you know what I mean? Like they want to face good competition because they're not really getting better if they're just going out there and hitting a bunch of home runs, but they're not really seeing anything that's going to prepare them for their college season. So I try to get good competition, but I also, I think everybody wins if places are really doing everything they can to help the game grow in a community.
So that makes what you said made me think something. So like the way I'm understanding this is the All-American Baseball Association that you guys are affiliated with. You guys have some control over your scheduling.
Yeah, so I would even really just kind of say, I mean, we're basically an independent team as far as yeah. So how that works is if that's been like something we've done since the beginning, and it's a national, international really tournament, and they, like a lot of tournaments, the affiliation aspect of that is more of just for competitive reasons, they don't want somebody putting an all-star team together and showing up. They want to know you're playing a certain amount of games against similar competition, that you've had the same roster more or less for a couple months and aren't just like grabbing all the best guys and showing up and beating everybody,
Well, that's unique compared to, because a lot of most of the summer leagues operate a little differently. A lot of them have a more of a centralized process where they set.
Exactly. No, you're right. It is unique, and I think it's been good for us, but and I don't know that that's what we'll always do, but I do think it's, especially just with our facility situation and all of that, like it's been kind of convenient to have a lot of control over the schedule, because we need to, more than other teams, it's very important that we get the Friday and Saturday night games that the Dash are out of town, because we have half as many opportunities to do those.
Right.
And if we were in a different league structure, it might still be doable. You might be able to figure out a situation where that works, but I think for us it's extremely important. So it's been good for that. We've tended to be able to do that. But I think also for us, I mean, and I really just kind of like the independent nature of what we're doing. We can really contour the schedule to what our needs are, and avoid some problems that I think make other teams and player experiences be kind of subpar. I've figured out what are good teams to bring in for early in the season, late in the season. What are good teams to bring in for home dates? What are good teams to go play on the road? And at least to this point, having more structure, I think, would have limited us a little bit.
Sure.
So one thing regarding the upcoming 2023 season, is there anything big changes that you see? Is there any type of affiliation that you would like to have? I mean, you said you've been, you're kind of growing it, which is great, because you're doing it the development way, which me personally, I love, and Brian as well, we love developing ball players. I mean, I coach younger kids, but I love the game. My background is more, play a little bit of baseball here and there growing up and dabble a little bit in high school, but I always say I was chasing my wife at the time, so I didn't have time for that for baseball. But we love the game so much, but I also love to know that kids are developing the right way, so that when they get to college, not many of them are gonna get drafted, but they have that experience. So having a team like you that just kind of focuses on them and getting them ready. Is there anything that you have new coming in 2023 that kids can kind of look forward to?
Oh yeah, yeah, and you're hitting it right in the head. Like it's a mix of maintaining credibility of your organization long term, so you can grow, and player development. We'll do things that are kind of against our financial interest to an extent where it doesn't harm us, to help the player experience. We also work really hard on fan experience, and think about that a lot too, how we can grow our brand from a fan experience side. I think for us, for this coming year, I mean, it's the prep work and the change. It's really hard to do on a dime. So, I think at this point there's not really much like that will be a big surprise, because, really you can't make any major changes without it being like a year out, because of just how hard it is to kind of get everything set up. But yeah, I think, for us, I think we're bringing in better teams to us. We've always been able to play a lot of road games against good teams, but it can be a little bit tough because of our having fewer home dates available to kind of get some of the best teams to come into our facility. We were able to set up some relationships, not in the league, it's still independent right now, but where we're doing some home and homes against some really good teams and bringing them in to play us. So I think for our fans, that's going to be awesome, because they're going to see better talent, and maybe better chance they're seeing like players from colleges they're fans of and things like that. We've worked a lot on just, some promotional things, and like last year, and we'll do some cool things this year. Like last year, some of the big successes we had with promotions were things like we had a Saturday Night Fever that we did with the Humane Society, and we had fans bring cats into the ballpark on leashes, so I think for me, that'll be fun. Just like, what can we do to top like Saturday Night Fever? Like every year we've got to get a little better and better on like outside the box things we can do. Last year we had a game where we really partnered with the local minor league hockey team, and one of their players actually played second base for us for the game. He played, he was a pro athlete. He played high school baseball in really good shape. He didn't he didn't get any hits, but he looked like he sort of knew what he was doing out there. And it wasn't like it was, everyone had a good time. And I think our players learned from dealing with a pro athlete, from another sport. It's just a fun experience for them. And it's like, what can we do along those lines? And like, can we get like a retired MLB player or something like that to come out for a couple games, and like, how can we just like every little thing, whether it's from that standpoint or just promotions or, trips we can take, like what can we do to kind of wow people? Because I think that's the business we're in to some extent, is like, can we wow people? Can we just, oh man, I didn't think that was going to really happen, and they really did it. Like last year we had our own beer with a local craft brewery. They made Fiddle and Fish. They made a beer with our logo on it, and we had a launch party. And it's like, okay, we're building bridges within our community, connecting with people. We had a guy who was a former firefighter who has a business where he restored like an old school fire truck, and it's like people drink beer on it and go on like excursions, like through downtown. And we had him like setting something up where he was like taxing people to to the downtown parking decks to our games and stuff. It's like, how can we just like take steps, work with others in our community, make things cooler and cooler. And I think for our players, it's the same thing. It's like, the roster gets a little better every year. And we just kind of keep up in the bar of like, what can we do to make this fun for these guys?
Well, I think the more you get your word out, I mean, anybody wants to. I want to play for the Disco Turkeys myself, but the more you get your name out there, the more players go back home and say, "Hey, this is a great." Because at the end of the day, if a player goes back home to his team, and like you said earlier, and he's developed, he's gotten better, he's learned something different. He's honed his game better. He's going to just speak. That's like a referral, right? He's going to speak on behalf of you guys here. This is a great program. They don't expect me to really dance. They want me to play baseball. But it really brings credibility to what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And then it really brings other guys who really, before you know it, you're going to have guys calling you, hey, I really want to play for you guys because I really want to get better. And I think that's kind of really puts you on the map. There's nothing wrong with what the Savannah Bananas have done. I mean, that's what they chose to do. I'm more of I like the entertainment part, but I like to go to baseball and see like the next up and coming ball player, the next kid that's gonna, maybe make a name for himself, and hopefully enjoy his college years because you don't know what happens after that. You don't know if he makes it to pro or not, but at least I think, like I tell my sons all the time, my oldest wrestles now and he played baseball a little bit, but he likes wrestling. My youngest one wants to play college baseball. And I don't push the pro part. I just say, hey, if you really want to play, you get to college, I think that's a great experience. Whatever happens after that, you have education, you play some baseball. If you go beyond that, great. If not, at least you gain that. So I think a lot of these kids are going to, what you're bringing to the table and what you're producing, it's a great stadium to play in. I'm sure the experience, I always wanted to play in a baseball stadium. I mean, I walk in a baseball stadium covering games and I'm just in awe. Because you feel like you're in this mecca of baseball, whatever the stadium is, just because that guys in the pro level come through there and play on this, so your kids are gonna have that experience, your players. But I think overall, what you're doing is it's great because these young guys need that. They just need to have that growth to get better and know that, hey, no matter what happens, the summer was successful. It got me to where I need to be. Most of them, if they take it serious enough.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we want the takeaway to be like, I got better, played some good competition. Think I had, I was tested, it wasn't just going against a bunch of like high school quality talent. And I got better. And then we've had a lot of like this past fall, like phone calls from players or parents of just like, I can't believe my son might be starting this year, or things like that. Like people that were like freshmen or sophomores and they were like, 4 or 5 guys at their position. And they're like, and some of it may be us. Some of it might just be the amount of at bats they got, or just being able to see more college pitching when they're used to a bench role or something like that. But yeah, we love to hear those kind of stories. We want them to get better, and I think the other side is just them having a blast, So it's both.
Well, one last thing is it's cool that you were also mentioned earlier how you don't want guys riding the bench. You want guys getting in the games, getting the experience. When we think about not every organization is like that, but if I have to think about rec baseball, when the kids are younger, they play. Mm-hmm. Travel ball, depending how well you are, you're going to get in the games. And in high school, some kids don't ever get in the game. They don't never get to showcase their skills or anything. But it's the key thing is getting them in the game to get the reps because then they don't develop. Watching everyone else play is great to watch the game, but getting in the game is what's most important. Even if it's a pitcher, how many games you have, he gets 2 starts out of the whole series, but he got something out of it that he can say, hey, what did I do wrong? Or what did I do better against the competition we faced to get to the next level? So stick to that because that's key.
Yeah.
Kids don't. I always tell my kids, you ride the bench only because I only can field 9 people, but you will get on the field. Mm-hmm. And young guys need that. They need to at least feel like they have the reps to know if they've progressed or not.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I think we've learned a lot about what you guys are doing. It's a really unique organization that you're running over there with the Disco Turkeys. both from a branding standpoint, but also from what you guys are doing with facilities and player development and kind of a different spin on what we've learned on collegiate summer league teams. So, Greg, we really appreciate your time this morning. And we're very excited to see what's in store for the Disco Turkeys in the next season.
Yeah, thanks guys. I enjoyed it. Hope you guys have a good new year.
Thank you.
Yep.
You as
Same
well.
to you.
Appreciate it.
Episode 20.
20th episode. Here we go. We're on the roll.
All right.